Good morning, everyone. How are you? I pray that you are doing well. It is another Wednesday where we are talking about leadership. Now, I like to start by saying all things rise and fall on leadership. All things rise and fall on leadership. This is our principle, this is our philosophy, this is something I believe in. It is something that I learned when I was a very young person. And when I learned those things, I began to realize that if you want to be successful, the first thing that you have to do is to study leadership, to become a leader. And when you look at the Bible, for example, because the Bible is our basic, is our foundation, the first thing that you have to see is that God uses leaders. And when God wants to use you, the first thing that he does, he turns you into a leader. Look at everyone in the Bible. Whenever God wanted to use them, from Moses to Elijah to Paul to Isaiah, all of them, by the time God decides to use them, including Jeremiah, he turns them first into leaders. So he comes to them and says, you will do this, you will do this, you will do this. But then he makes them leaders. So it is so important as a believer, as a Christian, or wherever you are, to understand leadership. And I always encourage people, whatever it is that you're doing in this life, study leadership. Go to class, buy books, do something about leadership. Leadership is not a position. It is not a place. It's not somewhere. It's not an appointment. Leadership is simply a task, fulfilling a task, fulfilling a responsibility. Leadership is what you do for people. It is what you do to make people's lives better. Okay? And as I said in previous videos, if you've been following us on these Wednesdays, and I said that leadership is beyond position. In other words, people can get positions, but they are not leaders. And people can live without positions, but they are leading. You see, the greatest problem in our society today is the lack of leadership or poor leadership, especially when it comes to elective positions where we have to elect people. And especially in Kenya at this moment, right now, people are complaining and complaining and complaining about the kind of leadership that we have. It's not a good leadership. But the funny thing is, people in Kenya have been complaining from the time I can remember, from Kibaki's time and President Moi's times and Uhuru's time and now Ruto's times. They're still complaining. But the fact is this: we are not good when it comes to electing leaders. The reason is this: because most leaders don't run for political office. Let me repeat that. Most leaders, people who have ability to lead, people who have leadership roles or leadership skills, people who can transform other people's lives, rarely run for political office. And so the question is, why don't they run for political office? Because politics has a reputation that it is dirty. Okay? People say that politics is a dirty game. And so true leaders, leaders of integrity and leaders of character, don't want to get dirty or to be dirtied by the politics. So they choose to execute their leadership tasks and their leadership skills in other areas like community work or the corporate or in churches. But most of the times, good leaders in Africa rarely run for political office. Therefore, then the question is, then what kind of people do we have in parliament? And these are now the questions that we have to ask ourselves. When you look at the parliament, for example, let me use the Kenyan parliament, and maybe other countries can relate, other African countries can relate. And I can tell you for truth, we do not have enough leaders or good leaders in our Kenyan parliament. Instead, we have people who bribed their way into elective positions. We have people who manipulated their way, controlled their way into elective office. All you have to do is look at the behavior, the kind of mannerisms they have. Sometimes, like recently, we saw a video of one of the leaders in Kenya going against traffic and recording it, and she was so excited about it. That is already a problem that we have in leadership. Instead of leading and showing Kenyans what we are supposed to do in traffic, she leads Kenyans into breaking the law. Okay, and that's the kind of thugs we have. Those are not leaders. And the issue is this with Kenya, and I want to speak to my Kenyans: lower your expectations. Lower your expectations, because the people, majority of the people, now understand me, I'm not saying all of them are not leaders, but I'm saying majority of the people who are in parliament today in Kenya are not leaders. They will never be leaders, and the positions that they hold will never make them leaders. Okay, and the fact is this: we need leaders to run for political office. We need people who are gifted, people who have the ability, people who have the skill to run for political office. We need transformational leadership in our society. And so all things rise and fall on leadership. A government that has the task to lead countries will determine where the country goes. All things, economies rise and fall on political leadership. They are the deciders. They're the ones who decide. They're the ones who set policy. They're the ones who determine whether the law will be followed. They're the ones who pass the bills. And so if they pass bad bills, then we have a bad economy, then we have a bad country. And I want to encourage you today, if you're watching this and you feel that you have been called into leadership and you have the skills and you have the ability, consider running for political office. Thank you, and God bless you.